And basically this is how to host a Vue app, Vue.js app, and Laravel backend. Laravel backend. Yeah, so I was explaining something to Dina about the different hosts, the services that we are having. So one, there's this, you can call them host service provider or internet service providers or whatever name you like to call them. People like these Kenya Web Experts. There's these Kenya Web Experts. They are on the same level with people like HostGator. There's another one called HostStinger. There's Bluehost. There's a number. East Africa, I don't know what, East Africa Host, whatever. So these guys, what they do, they give you a place to host. They give you two things. One, they give you a place to host your application. So they provide host or server space. They call them server space at time. So this is somewhere to host your app, to host your application. This is what they give you. Number two, they give you domain name. We call it domain. So this is domain name. For example, they might give you a domain like bula.co.ke. That's an example of a domain name. Inside this domain name, you'll find that where you go and create subdomains. Okay, so out of this domain name, you can create subdomains. These subdomains are like, you can say I want to create a POS app and I'll host it on pos.bula.co.ke. You can have another app, you say foodie.bula.co.ke. So these ones, we call them subdomains. This one is the main domain, so that's what we call domain. So this is offered by these people. They can offer you either the server space and the subdomain. For Kenya, this one goes around 3K per year, yearly, and this one might cost something like 1,000, a year. No, it could be 1,000, and these ones could be 2K, and then this one could be 1K, something like that. So in total, it should be 3K a year, something like that, depending on the type of these providers that you select, the hosting providers. On top of this, what they offer you, the host, they'll give you two things, a number of things. So what they'll give you is what? It's called web server. It's called webmail. Yeah, webmail. This is like email server. They'll give you an account with the credentials to log into it. If you buy host space or server space with them, that is host. Number two, they'll give you a cPanel. So what about the two? So this one is majorly to maintain or to manage your emails, is where you'll be receiving your emails, company email, like the one we made, sam@bula.co.ke, alex.bula.co.ke. This one goes to the webmail. That's why you'll say, if you try to say bula.co.ke/webmail, it will take you to this login. Number two, there is the cPanel. Now, this one is where now you host your files. This is where now you get services like, number one, you might have a file manager where you can see your files. This one you can now manage your domain files. Number two, you can have the second one, which could be the phpMyAdmin. So these are just services. So they'll give you services within this. So you can have phpMyAdmin. This one now will help you manage your MySQL if you're using MySQL. And they'll have so many other services, but the few that we'll discuss is PHP Multi-Manager. We'll also look into subdomain or domain manager. subdomains. That's where we are creating the subdomains. And then we can look at this should be 3, this should be 4. We can look at things like what else? So there are other services. We can say just etc, because now there are services like WordPress site installation. There are things like these are the CMS. There are things like Node.js app initialization. There are things like wherever different app, maybe Python app, whatever, any other thing. So there are so many services. All of these we call them services. So they'll give you different services on this panel. So this is the first one that they'll give you, and then number 2 they'll give you this. So you need to understand this. Going on, this domain doesn't have a lot of things. This is just to understand this, the domain is pointing to ABCD. There's something also called, because now you know domain is an alternative for the IP address. Now this is the first kind of hosting that you are having. This one, basically what we call it shared hosting. A general name for this, you said shared hosting, because now you'll not have an interaction with your machines. You'll not have an interaction with those services that you're given. You're just given a cPanel, so you can't even console log into it. There are a lot of things that you can't really manage. And so also on top of this, they gave you something called, it's called what? But this one, I think they don't give you that access so far. There's something we call, it's called what? Domain name, whatever. It was called what? Who? Is it who? Web host. Web host. Is it who or something? It's web host. I think. Yeah. It's who M up. Yeah, it's hem. I think. Yeah. Web host manager account. Yeah. So there's something like this which they give you, which you can do the administrator account, but I don't think a lot of them give this one to their clients. So they are the ones who can access this. So you can research about it and know what that one means. So this one is called the shared hosting. Out of that, now we have number 2. Number 2 is what now we call dedicated servers, or you can call it dedicated server, or call it dedicated host, or call it a name like that. Whichever name that you want to call them. But once I explain, that's when you can understand it pretty well. So this is like you can say dedicated service. I'm going fast theory because I want you to understand well before I go into doing the real stuffs. So under this dedicated servers or dedicated host serving, you now buy one thing. You go to people like providers, like the big providers, like say Google. For Google, you'll go to Google GCP. That is Google Cloud Platform, which I like for my own reasons. You can go to AWS, which is Amazon. You can decide to pick Amazon Web Service. This is Amazon Web Service. And you can also go to Microsoft. For Microsoft, you just go to Microsoft Azure. That one will help you. And also you can decide to go to people like DigitalOcean. These people will give you things like for DigitalOcean, for example. So you'll find that these providers, these people here will give you some services. So there are services they'll give you. For example, this one might give you services to create virtual machines in the name of computed engines. They call it compute engines. This is an example of a service, yeah. So these are just, I can say, example service. They'll give you services like these things like Cloud Run, things like, so all these are services. They'll give you like RDB, that's relational database manager and stuff like that. Same to these people here. Amazon will also give you stuff like the VMs. They'll give you a service called EC2. This is the same as compute engines for GCP. They'll give you things like services like RDB, RDBMS, something like that one. They'll give you how to access the database and create those stuffs. And then within EC2, they'll give you things like virtual machines. So these ones is their, this one they have their physical machine or virtual machine that they create and they share. For these ones, you create your own virtual machines, or those, yeah, these VMs. You are the one who create these VMs for yourself. Yeah, yeah. So these ones you create for yourself. You create the VMs. This other one you find that this one you can now access. The same to Azure. As you do that, this one they give you something called drop. I think, what's their name? Is it droplets or whatever? This is the name they call it. So this is just an example of these service providers. So this will give you that. Now, these people you'll be able to, these providers will allow you create a virtual machine, log in into virtual machine, maintain services like storage. You can manage your RAM. You can create different services. You can deploy using these DevOps tools like Kubernetes. You can decide to deploy apps using whichever kind of, you can monitor your apps, how they're performing, blah, blah, blah. And then they charge you per runtime. They say your server is running at a cost of, let's say, $2 an hour or $3 an hour. And then they'll charge you monthly. After a month, you get a bill, you pay for these services. So what happens is, after you create these VMs or these services, now you point your IP address. There are two ways. You can either use this, you buy host name, you buy server space and buy host name, or you buy just host name, and then this host name you'll point them to your different VMs that you created. Because these VMs, they'll come with public and private IP addresses. So you just use these IP addresses to either point. So you can redirect this pos.bula to another IP address, this one to another VM, this one to another service, and stuff like that. Now, what I'll be teaching you today won't be this. This is a bit complicated. I'll need a lot of things set up for you before I can teach you this. What I want to teach you now is about the upper one, the cPanel one, the easiest shared hosting platform, and how you do it. So that's what I want to show you now. And then in line with that, I'll show you now how to host your Laravel backend and Vue.js. So let's get started. I'll log into one of my cPanel. So you'll find cPanel will differ. It will differ from one point to another. You'll find at times, I'm not sure if the other one I can open it for you because of saving my passwords. I cannot open the other one. Now this one, is it really logging in? Oh shit! Did someone try to log this one in? Let me see. Let me try first, and then you can see.